Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, you know the drill. I'm a retired New York City police detective, and if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you'll get all things DutyRon when I go live or upload another video. Hey, today I wanted to come live because there's some of the largest breaking news in Long Island's history. Gilgo Beach defendant Rex Heuermann arrested and charged with 3 out of 4 Gilgo Beach murders. There's also up to 8 additional victims in the killings that went on along Gilgo Beach and Ocean Parkway. I wanted to come live to get your thoughts, to hear my thoughts, to talk about possibilities. Are there more victims out there? I believe so. I believe that there's more victims because this perpetrator was doing some unusual searching, so unusual that the Suffolk County Police, along with the FBI and local, state, and federal partners, decided that it was time to take him down before he committed another murder. Before I get into it, I want to say a special thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, the subscribers, the replay viewers, the folks who leave positive comments down below in the chat. We saw so many great comments left overnight from the video that we did last night. And by a show of hands here, how many of you guys caught the show that Ed Wallace and I did at 8 o'clock last night? I thought it was a great coverage, a great show covering what went on, what led up to the arrest of this perpetrator. Again, he needed to be taken off the streets prematurely by the investigators due to the fact that they were worried that he was going to kill another sex worker. So thank you to everybody who's here. I want to say hello to a few people. Hi, Gayla. Hello, Pat Hansen. Hi, Regina. Great to see you. Listen, this is a local crime. Ed Wallace, myself, we worked 20 plus years in the New York City Police Department. Our former chief of department, chief of detectives, Rodney Harrison, became police commissioner in Suffolk County and employed some of the best techniques from the greatest detectives in the world, the NYPD detectives. He started that task force. The task force is comprised of Suffolk County detectives and investigators from the district attorney's office in Suffolk County, state police, Nassau County Police, which is the adjoining counties, federal, the FBI, and other agencies. So when people ask questions like, hey, DutyRon, what does a task force mean? What does the Gilgo Beach Task Force mean, and how does it operate? Well, it operates, as they said in the press conference, they operate collaboratively as a team, and everybody checks their egos at the door. And their one goal is to catch and bring the perpetrator or perpetrators into custody and have a successful arrest and prosecution. And that's what it takes here. There's only one piece of this puzzle that's happening right now, and that's the summary arrest. But the prosecutor's job is now to successfully charge Rex and get guilty verdicts at a trial. So that's the main concern when it comes to this. But I wanted to play for you. Our local news is doing some phenomenal coverage. And I want to play a piece from you from Fox 5, because this piece that I want to play here, they go over a timeline of events in the Gilgo Beach murders. And I think it's important for us to see it. Hi, Dawn Marie. Hello, Donna Marie. Sweet one. Good to see you. Cheryl, Amanda Page. I like to call out some of the people when I see them. Emily, thank you for being here. My first channel member. Let me highlight her because she's my very first. As soon as I became monetized and the channel memberships were available, Emily was the first one to hit that channel membership button. So thank you, Emily. And look, she's still here. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Robbie, my good Aussie friend, hanging out from Australia, put another prawn on the Barbie, and let's listen to this. Let's take a peek at what they have to say.
Gilgo Beach murder case dates back to 2007 when the first victim went missing. The first bodies were found in 2010, but it's not until now that any arrests have been made.
Fox 5's Teresa Priolo is in the newsroom with a look back at this timeline of the case and the changes within the Suffolk County Police Department that might have helped lead to this arrest. Teresa.
Yes, certainly, Natasha and Steve. This is an investigation with so many twists and turns, so many stops and starts. And as you mentioned, while most people who have been following this case might think that December 2010 is the beginning of it, what you are about to see is a timeline of events that begins in 2007 with the disappearance of Maureen Barnes.
We were here looking for Shannon Gilbert. That was the whole reason for our searches here over the last number of months. We had and have an active missing persons case.
That missing persons case, the case of sex worker Shannon Gilbert, was the tipping point in what would turn out to be an extensive, mystifying hunt for a serial killer living in plain sight. Over the years, Gilbert's case was found not to be connected to the Gilgo Four, but the hunt for her remains is what spurred the initial investigation. It's a timeline that begins in July of 2007. That's when Maureen Barnes went missing in New York City. She was contacted by a burner phone. The last time she was seen alive was July 9th, 2007. 2 years later, July 2009 was the last time Melissa Bartholomew was seen alive. The burner phone that contacted her was pinged in Massapequa Park. It was the search for her body that led to the Gilgo Four. Megan Waterman went missing in June of 2010, and in September of that year, Amber Costello was last seen alive. December of 2010, during the search for Bartholomew, their bodies were found in Gilgo Beach. The first, December 11th, 2010, the next three, December 13th. Fast forward to April of 2011. 4 more bodies are discovered, making investigators question how many killers are at work. Throughout the investigation, there have been multiple police commissioners, some who wanted the FBI and their search tools involved, and some who did not. But in 2018, Geraldine Hart became the 4th Suffolk Police Commissioner to oversee this investigation after a 20-year career with the FBI. Her tenure with the FBI brought an understanding of this case. And
thank you, Fiona, for that super chat. This is Geraldine Hart, former Suffolk County Police Commissioner. She was instrumental in bringing out additional information in regards to this case. And that belt buckle that they recovered from around one of the victims within the victim's body, this was instrumental, and I don't think we've heard the last about this belt buckle, because if you look at it, his last name, initial H, and if you look at it, it's WH or HM. No matter how you look at this thing, I guarantee you we're going to hear more about this belt buckle and a lot of additional evidence. But this is great coverage, and it's local coverage, and this is why I want to play it. Just FYI, I took a ride past this location in Massapequa Park, and it's still swarming with reporters. I just took a ride because I personally had to see it for myself, not to see the house or anything like that. I didn't even stop. I just drove by. It's still swarming with news reporters, local people watching, people from around the communities that are coming out. I just drove by. I didn't stop. I didn't get out. But it was hectic, as that's the best way I could describe it. It was hectic. Tons of people there.
A renewed sense of urgency, including the discovery of a leather belt ritualistically tied around the victims. And then December 2021, former NYPD Chief Rodney Harrison takes over as Suffolk Police Commissioner. And within a month, he establishes the Gilgo Beach Homicide Investigation Task Force.
And this is something that NYPD, Rodney Harrison is the former chief of detectives, and was the chief of the department. Rodney Harrison brings his experience and insight from being an executive and a commander in the largest police department in the United States, the best police department in the world, the NYPD, with the most resources, the most amount of personnel, and state-of-the-art equipment. He came to Suffolk County, which is a police force a less than a tenth of the size of the NYPD, with a couple of thousand officers all in total in Suffolk County. Although the county is large, it's larger than Nassau County. Rodney Harrison came with the experience, with the knowledge of how to tackle large investigations, and he started from the beginning. You hear him talk about, let's get a fresh set of eyes on this case, and that's exactly what he did. He went to the murder scenes, multiple scenes, and he walked those scenes along with the police commissioner from Nassau County, because he knew that he was going to have to rely on Nassau County and Suffolk County working together, their emergency service units, the NYPD, federal partners, and also the state police. So he started from scratch. And here you see him sitting down in what could be considered the Suffolk County Police Department and the District Attorney's war room. You go to one police plaza and you see the war room is like 10 times the size of this thing. And my brother, who's a retired lieutenant from the NYPD, he worked in operations, and all of the planning and all of the task force partners would come to one police plaza where my brother worked. And I walked through the situation room. It's got screens all around it. It's state of the art. But this is the experience that Rodney Harrison brought to the Suffolk County Police Department. And I think it was a definite big help and a push. The investigators did the job and got the case closed, but there's still a ton more work to be done here. So let's let the rest of this play.
Their sole purpose, to bring the killer to justice. And
there's Rex walking out from Suffolk County Police Headquarters, and you see him here. His size. I mean, he's a big guy. He's a big guy.
They got their big break this week. Rodney Harrison takes over as Suffolk Police Commissioner, and within a month, he establishes the Gilgo Beach Homicide Investigation Task Force. Their sole purpose, to bring the killer to justice. And they got their big break this week.
Now, in January of last year, the Suffolk County DA assigned a team of investigators to review every item of evidence in this investigation. 2 months in, they discovered a Chevy Avalanche. It was registered to Rex Heuermann at the time of the murders. Investigators believe that is significant because they say, Steve and Natasha, it ties him to Amber Costello.
So there you have it. There's going to be a lot more information that comes out in these in the coming days, in the coming months. His next court date is August 1st, 2023. There's a 32-page probable cause affidavit document that's out there. I'm not like big on reading documents. We're going to have our attorney, Pete Carrasco. He's a former prosecutor in Queens and New York City. He's also a criminal defense attorney out in Long Island. So we're going to have him come on and break down some of the documents for you in a future live stream. Eve, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. And thank you to everyone out there who is a returning subscriber. If you're not yet subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button, giving this video a thumbs up. And to all the new people who have newly come across this community, this channel, Crime Time with DutyRon, I thank you for being here. I'm retired Irish detective, another brother in blue who I worked with in the trenches on patrol in East New York and Brownsville, Brooklyn. So there's retired Irish detective. Go and check out his channel. I'm going to be sharing some of his stuff that he does on his YouTube page. So everybody go and check out my good friend, retired Irish detective. Hey, I want to get your thoughts. I want to go to the chat here. How many of you feel, and it's easy to feel this way, but I want to get your thoughts of why you feel this. How many people out in the chat feel that Rex has murdered more than the four? There's one that they are still working on. One case, Maureen Barnes, went missing July of 2007. Her body and her remains, part of the Gilgo 4, recovered in 2010. How many of you guys feel that he has killed more than the four? Do you feel he's responsible for the Gilgo 11? Some argue it's 10. Some argue it's 11. Do you feel that he is also responsible for those other outstanding souls who were brutally murdered, sex workers? And could there have been more? Because we heard a report just yesterday from a young 25-year-old girl, and I'll play it for you guys. She was 25 in Burns Park in Massapequa, right outside of Massapequa Park, and riding a bicycle on a bike path. And out of the woods comes Rex. Out of the woods comes this big man, Rex Heuermann, and she was startled. He asked her for the time, what time of day it was. She stopped her bike. She gave him the time. He looked at her phone, saw a picture of her and her boyfriend on the phone, and started giving her compliments. And she felt that uncomfortable that she called the police and made a report on July 3rd, this month, about Rex. And she is interviewed in the Post. I have the article here. Was she another potential victim of this guy? Was he just having one of those days where he was in his homicidal maniac mode? She's not a sex worker, and that's his MO. He goes and gets these burner phones and goes after sex workers. But was this young 25-year-old his next victim? Who knows? I'm going to play some coverage from ABC News from last night. I thought it was good coverage. I want to play this for you because they go over some things that you may not hear if you're outside of the New York area. So let's take a listen. Let's take a peek at it. I think that this guy definitely has many more murders under his belt. Don't forget, he has, and this is just my opinion, of course, he has a home, a residence in Massachusetts. His wife, from reports that I've heard, now this is not me getting this information directly, but his wife is from Iceland. She goes to Iceland to visit her family every summer, and this is when he commits his crimes. So his wife is from Iceland. She goes and leaves outside the country and goes for extended periods of time to see her family. And apparently this is when he's being a peacock and spreading out and doing his stuff. So let's take a listen to this, and we'll come right back on. And I want to take some questions from you guys.
Oak Beach, and police believe there may be other bodies out there.
Yeah, and Liz, this is the barrier island to the south of the town of Babylon, an extensive search that goes on for a good mile along the bay here south of the town of Babylon. You could see crime scene investigators there, and then, Tony, if you want to come back out, you could see behind me, and then clear up the beach right here. There are multiple outposts here where they're right now sifting.
This is a report, obviously, of when these human remains were found in 2010. So they're just setting up this report.
Through the sand and looking for human remains. We know right now that they can confirm in the last couple of days they have found 2 bodies. We believe skeletal remains, one on Saturday, one today, and we're told possibly more.
There sure were more. It's hard to imagine, surreal in fact, that it's...
Okay, so again, this is the same reporter, Josh Einiger. That's his reporting from 2010, and the rest of this is going to be interesting information from a reporter's perspective.
It's been 12 and a half years since I stood on the beach in the bitter cold. That was December of 2010. Now here we are in July of 2023, and I'm standing in front of the home of a suspected serial killer. I'm Josh Einiger, live in Massapequa Park, Long Island. This is Eyewitness News Extra Time. We're glad you're joining us for this special edition of our streaming show tonight, and we are talking about the Gilgo Beach serial killer, the Gilgo Beach murders, 10 sets of human remains, which were discovered in gruesome fashion along the Ocean Parkway, which spans between Jones Beach and Robert Moses State Park 13 years ago, practically now. We can show you exclusive video that Eyewitness News just obtained from last night in Midtown Manhattan, when the suspect in at least as many as 4 of those killings was finally, after all this time, taken into custody. 59-year-old Rex Heuermann, who is an architect in the city. Eyewitness News just obtained.
All right, so I want to just stop this because a lot of people were questioning this. Like I sent a couple of emails back and forth with some of the subscribers, and some people said, DutyRon, didn't the NYPD, because he was taken down in Midtown Manhattan, didn't the NYPD arrest this guy? And the answer to that is no. The Suffolk County Police Department came into New York City. They probably notified NYPD. Rodney Harrison, former NYPD chief of the department, chief of detectives, they notified NYPD that this takedown was going to happen. And this is footage of the takedown. It was early in the morning, and members from the Suffolk County Homicide Detectives Task Force, the Gilgo Beach Task Force, with the FBI and state and all of the partners, and Nassau County was probably there. They come in and they do this takedown in the middle of the street, and people argue of, well, why would you do it out in the middle of, the street on the sidewalk, in the middle of Manhattan? It's just how it's done. It's done in a safe manner, and he's taken into custody. And let's just take a peek at this.
From last night in Midtown Manhattan, when the suspect in at least as many as 4 of those killings was finally, after all this time, taken into custody. 59-year-old Rex Heuermann, who is an architect in the city but lives here in Massapequa Park, went without incident with Suffolk and state police investigators, a whole task force who have actually, we are told now, been tracking him for months. Mugshot now, as he was.
This is his prisoner mugshot from Yaphank from Suffolk County. He has the traditional turtle suit, as you could see from here where my cursor is. It's Velcroed on. It almost looks. People ask me if this was a bulletproof vest. The answer to that is no. But look at him. Looks disheveled. Doesn't look like someone who is taking like hair care is not really a concern of his. This is how he was dressed to go to work, not obviously in this clothing, but his hair looks like disheveled and not combed, not brushed. You look at his home, look at the house in Massapequa Park out here in Long Island, just a short 15, 20-minute drive from my home. And that home looked like a piece of shit. It looked like a dump. Looked like he didn't do anything to it. And the neighbors from his block all complained when interviewed by the news that, it was an eyesore. I mean, if on my block here, if there was a house that was in that condition, not many, and myself included, would be happy about it because it makes the neighborhood look like crap. But his house was not well kept. I can only imagine what the inside looked like. And that makes people point fingers at the wife, point fingers at the whole family. We don't know how these people lived, but we know that he was a homicidal maniac and looked at child porn, looked at snuff films, and you could go and look all this stuff up. This is not good stuff. And he preyed on sex workers. So let's just let the rest of this play. But this is a turtle suit. So that's not a bulletproof vest, by the way. It's something that is preventing him from committing suicide while incarcerated.
Booked into the Suffolk County Jail. He was arraigned on murder charges involving 3 of the Gilgo victims, and a 4th is likely as well. Eyewitness News reporter Stacey Sager was in court for Heuermann's first appearance today.
He was taken to court this afternoon and said nothing to reporters. But Rex Heuermann did tell his defense attorney he denied.
I mean, look at the size of him. There's what Ed and I spoke about last night. This female detective and these guys here, they all look small right next to this guy. Big guy. He looked like he's about 280 plus pounds. My guess, he's right around that 300-pound mark. But he's a big dude, not muscular. And these are the descriptions to the T that are of this perpetrator. So interesting, to say the least.
He was taken to court this afternoon and said nothing to reporters. But Rex Heuermann did tell his defense attorney he denies all the charges.
The only thing I can tell you that he did say as he was in tears was, "I didn't do this."
But local, state, and federal authorities.
Those are the people who are taxed with representing him. Imagine that, right? So everyone is, innocent until proven guilty. This is his defense team for his arraignment yesterday. So these two were assigned probably by legal aid. I don't think he would qualify for legal aid because of his financial. This guy's supposedly wealthy, but these are his legal representation. I don't think he had enough time to hire private counsel on the spot. They could be private counsel, but I don't think so. But if they are private counsel, don't crucify me. But this is what happens in court. They have the legal aid who's there in a pinch when they make an arrest that's something that happens quickly. This defendant didn't have time to start making phone calls to private counsel. But I would imagine that in his next appearance on August 1st of 2023, he will be represented by private counsel unless he can prove that he's poor and he can't afford it. I don't think that that's going to be the situation here, but stranger things have happened, right? So here they are talking about him saying that he didn't do it.
The thing I can tell you that he did say as he was in tears was, "I didn't do this."
But local, state, and federal authorities on Long Island outlining today years of quiet evidence collection leading to an indictment against Heuermann for at least 3 Gilgo murders, that of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. And they say Rex Heuermann is likely to be charged in a 4th, the murder of Maureen Barnes. The pattern?
All the women were bound at the head, at the midsection, or at the chest, and later at the legs. They were bound by burlap. The burlap was camouflage burlap used to purposely hide the bodies.
The indictment.
So again, Maureen Barnes, that her sister was the one who received the phone call from Rex with Maureen's phone after he murdered her. He called Maureen Barnes' sister and taunted her and told her what he did to his sister, what he did to her sister. I mean, that's how much of an evil monster this guy is, that he had the audacity and the gall to call this victim's family, her only sister, and describe on her cell phone what he did to her. And that's a special kind of evil. And I have innocent until proven guilty. We know that. They have a mountain of evidence against this guy. And I'm hoping and praying that the case is very strong, which I got a great feeling from the district attorney. He really kind of spelled it out, which he gave more information than I wanted him to give. He held back information on things. Very few. The only thing he held back information on is about the genealogy and the DNA and how they collected it and so forth. Not how they collected, but how they processed it. He said it was against New York state law, but he did talk a lot. But again, there's going to be much more for us to hear in this case, and we're going to be listening closely. That's for sure.
Bound by burlap. The burlap was camouflage burlap used to purposely hide the bodies.
The indictment against him reading like a movie thriller, saying Heuermann used at least 7 burner phones he would toss after his alleged crimes, but not before taking selfies like these to find his victims. Federal investigators were tracking the cell phone activity to 4 separate towers around the area of Massapequa Park, where they converged today. But they say Heuermann was positively ID'd back in March of 2022. First, after a witness described him, then a description matching his Chevy pickup truck, then data listing his address in the so-called box. Here, Massapequa Park, where all the cell calls were being traced.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families.
But there is more work to do. Other victims not linked to Heuermann, their families also at court today, without closure, but hopeful.
All right, I wanted to stop it there because this is a picture of the victims, and again, arguably here you'll hear the attorney that represents two of the victims, John Ray. He represents Jessica Taylor and Shannon Gilbert. He'll always say that there's 11 victims. Grain, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you. Terry K. I also wonder how many others he's killed. And that's why I put that in part in this title. That was my question that I'm posing to the audience.
At court today, without closure, but hopeful.
Full justice is all the cases being closed.
There needs to be far more investigation, and maybe the dam will have broken with this fellow.
And remember, there are at least 6 other Gilgo victims. Investigators have long believed there could be more than one killer. But as for today's indictment, 6 counts of murder, each one punishable by a potential sentence of life in prison without parole. The judge telling Heuermann he'll be held without bail. In Riverhead, I'm Stacey Sager, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
We had been hearing for the last maybe year and a half, 2 years, that the investigation had been jump-started with the assistance of the FBI, which has much more sophisticated DNA matching capability and cell phone tracking capability than the Suffolk Police Department was able to bring to bear. And so we can show you some video of actually images that we saw in the criminal complaint in Suffolk County Court today. Investigators found selfies that Heuermann allegedly took with those burner phones, which he then posted online to search for escorts, to search for sex, frankly, and perhaps lure his alleged victims. We also learned about how they used DNA to match him to the victims with whom he is charged. Hairs that did not match those victims that belonged to a man that were found on the scene so many years ago. Well, investigators, once they were on to Heuermann, they waited for him to throw out some trash. He threw out a pizza box, and on that pizza box, according to the indictment, was a crust inside the box that he had not completed eating. And from that pizza crust, they were able to find enough of his DNA to match with the hair found on the victims at the scene. And that was a key piece of evidence that helped get to this location, this point today. Back live here in Massapequa Park, this is a very small residential bedroom community. A lot of law enforcement people live in this neighborhood, and a lot of working law enforcement now have surrounded the house where Heuermann lives with his wife and 2 children. Eyewitness News reporter Christian Thorne spent the day here in this neighborhood with how people are reacting to the alleged serial killer next door.
It's a shocker. It's scary.
A crime that has captivated the world, a true crime story of movies and books, has come down to this quiet neighborhood in Massapequa Park. Neighbors still can't believe one of the suspected Gilgo Beach killers was living among them.
Oh my God, I think I know who it is.
The crowds only grew throughout the day, from neighbors to people from all over Long Island who wanted to get a glimpse of Rex Heuermann's house. They saw the investigators in hazmat suits, a car being towed out of Heuermann's driveway, and something else hidden under a large tarp. It was like watching a movie. And for those who have been armchair detectives on this case for years, it's a day they never thought they would actually see.
I saw it on Facebook this morning, and I was at work, and I was just like, listen, I got to take some personal time. I got to go down here.
This is what I mean. I did take a ride by, and it was that exact chaotic scene that you just see there. And Massapequa Park, Long Island, is all, fire, police, civil servants, a lot of civil servants. Listen, I don't want to let her hold on and wait. Melanie Little, attorney Melanie Little, is joining us by audio. She's not home. She's out of town, but that's how invested she is. She's watching this case, and I know that she wishes that she didn't take this trip and that she was home, because she'd be live with us on this continually. So, Melanie, thank you for being here. How are you?
Oh my God, thank you so much. I can't believe what a great day this is for Long Island. I mean, we have been waiting for this day since the first bodies were found, right? In 96.
Absolutely.
When they found those legs floating near Fire Island. I mean, this is crazy. I just can't wait to see, and I haven't been able to watch a ton of the coverage on this, but it's going to be a challenge how these national news reporters are pronouncing Massapequa. You know, I was thinking like, good thing it wasn't Hop Hog, because it would be like insane.
Yeah, I got some good laughs listening to that.
Right? I mean, this is our backyard. You know, I've been driving Ocean Parkway to work, and I live, you know, on Long Island, and I used to take Ocean Parkway to work in Garden City because it was just a more scenic route, even though it was like 10 miles longer.
Right.
And every time I drove down that road, I just couldn't not think about these bodies that were found there. And, you know, my gut is that there are so many more bodies out there.
I agree wholeheartedly. My wife and I, we go to Gilgo. We go to, we take rides on Ocean Parkway on a regular basis in the summertime. We roll the windows down and let the air come on in, and you can't not drive down Ocean Parkway and not think about these girls and the victims. But how many more are maybe out there that we don't know about, that
So
we
many
haven't
more.
found yet? And I talked last night with Ed Wallace, and I know we mentioned it briefly to each other just earlier this week that just passed. Skeletal remains. Now we know it was a male, so that doesn't fit the pattern, but maybe there's some collateral damage that might have gotten in the way of this guy somewhere along the route down, you know, back years ago, and maybe he had to kill a male. We don't know. I'm not saying that this is the case, but it's so coincidental that exit 40 off the Southern State, if you look at the Google Earth imaging, and I don't like to, take up the live stream with showing Google Earth all live stream long, but I looked at it before I went live last night, and it's just a short hop away from his home. And Burns Park and that Massapequa Preserve goes from the South Shore to the North Shore. It's huge.
And he lives right across the street from the bay. His Ramble Down shack is right across the street from the bay where these bodies were found as well. And did you cover the girl who had the run-in with him at the beginning of July?
I talked July 3rd. I talked about it on this. I have the Post article ready to play and her interview. So I'm going to get into it. Sharon Creates sent in a message from the members. She said a male was wearing a woman's clothing. Yes, that's one of the 11. And John Ray, the attorney who represents the Gilberts and the Taylor family, he talks all the time and makes reference to 11 victims here, and that it includes the Asian cross-dresser who was found, the only male to be found along Ocean Parkway. Things that make you go, right? And make you think.
I was thinking, like, could it be that, he was catfished into thinking this was a woman, because he was seeking out these sex workers through Craigslist. I mean, that's how far back this goes, before the internet was even really a thing, right? And I think he was going through back page ads on Craigslist to find these people.
Right. Craigslist and Backpage, to my understanding and my research, were two separate things. So it was Craigslist that originally started out with sex workers. That got shut down by a court order or an injunction. They shut down Craigslist, and then this Backpage came up. And then Backpage got shut down. The sex portion of Craigslist got shut down. Backpage started. So I guess, as the time goes on, I'm sure that there's other sites that, somebody like himself, because in the investigation, they said that he was currently researching the investigators on how they're investigating him. He was looking at the victims' families, where they lived, their loved ones, their daughters, their offspring. This is sick on many levels. And he also was contacting sex workers to try to make dates. And that's what made this task force of Rodney Harrison panic and say, hey, we can't have more people at the hands of the guy who we now know. They identified him. The task force started in February, and they identified him March 14th of 2022. Right. So this is over a year that they know in their minds that this is the guy, and they're watching him 24/7, and they're freaking the F out because of his searches.
Yeah.
He's looking to connect.
What they may have prevented, I mean, that's the danger, right? When you're watching a guy like this, and this, I'm not law enforcement, but you're watching a guy like this, and you know that he's going to commit another possible murder at any time. When do you step in, to prevent it?
The liability is on them 100%.
Oh yeah.
because when I was in the fugitive apprehension team, when I had 100 cases that I was holding, my biggest fear is when I went on my days off, whether it was the weekends that I was off or during the week, the days that I was off, I was always thinking in my mind, what if one of my guys that I have in that 100 caseload file either kills somebody, rapes somebody, commits a major crime, major offense? They're going to come to me and say, why didn't you take this guy off the street? So in this case, they, like me, I didn't know where these people were. I had to find them. With this, they already identified him. February, the task force starts. Again, like I said, March 14th of 2022, they had Rex on their radar screen. So they're following all of his moves. I don't blame them one bit for taking him down because they felt like they wanted to have all 4 charges against them. They didn't have enough for the final victim, Maureen Barnes. But I think that is pending and maybe is forthcoming. What's your thoughts on that?
I think this is going to happen any minute. I think they just are trying to gather some more evidence. I don't know if you covered this yesterday because I was trying to watch while I was like in Uber and like running around. But it should be noted that Ray Tierney, who is the DA for Suffolk County, only took office in January of 2022. Right. So he's newly elected. He's a lifelong, he was a prosecutor. He was an AUSA in the federal division. And he, I have a lot of thoughts about why he gave so much information at that presser. And I think that, a lot of people thought he was oversharing and giving too much detail. But, the people of Long Island have been worried about this, for 25 years almost, right?
Yeah.
About this serial killer. And so I think that he really wanted us to know that they got the right guy and that he had a slam dunk on this, because I'm going through the indictment now. It's 32 pages. It's incredibly detailed. And although a lot of people thought he gave too much information, I think that he wanted to make everybody sure that they got the right guy this time, because there has been so much chatter. And you touched on this yesterday about Burke and about all these other guys who are high up in the system that were involved in this, that they didn't want to touch. And that doctor who I think is deceased now, right?
Yeah. And you can't touch on this story and not talk about, the former police commissioner. You can't not James Burke. You can't not touch on the doctor who faked his heart attack out in Suffolk County and when he was stopped by a reporter. I actually have that on video on some of my former coverage on the Long Island serial killer. So I've done some videos on this in the past.
Yeah.
So this is all part of public consumption, and people question the integrity of the investigation. And Melanie, you and I both talked about this because of these girls, the victims here being sex workers. Public and everyone who was watching felt that the police were just like,
right.
They're
like, who's going to miss them? It's kind of like, when homeless people and it's a terrible thing to say, but it is the reality of the situation that, runaways, homeless people, a lot of times they're not reported missing.
Right.
And so they can't be identified.
Right.
And it kind of just falls under the rate. Like nobody really investigates it because there's nobody to even really notify.
Everyone's life matters here. And these were, girls who were in less than ideal situations and they were struggling for money. We heard, I watched an interview with Maureen Barnes' sister, and she talked about that she was devastated. She didn't even know her sister was doing this. She was behind on her rent. She had children. She was going to be thrown out of her residence, and she was doing things that her only sister didn't even know about. She come to find out about it after her remains were recovered. And that's the sad part, is there's a story behind each one of these individuals. And I want so badly for justice for them and for their families. And I'm hoping that the police commissioner, Rodney Harrison, and the team, the investigative team, is able to close these open cases. The rest, the 7, 8 remaining, they need to get justice. The family needs to get justice.
100%.
Look what happened to Shannon. Her mom was murdered by her own daughter through mental health issues. Daughter thought her mom was a demon and stabbed her like multiple times, killed her.
I mean, these were young girls, right? All in their 20s, right? Doing what they needed to do to survive. Look, this is a hard place to live. It's an expensive place to live. And, they can't be faulted for that. And they should be treated with as much respect and dignity as any other victim of a horrific murder.
Absolutely. I explained what the task force is because some people didn't really understand the concept of it. It's a partnership between state, local, and federal law enforcement resources. They take all of the talent and the best of what they have. When you form these special task force, I'll just give you guys a little insight behind the scenes. The executives, the police executives, Rodney Harrison, the police chief, police commissioner, goes to all of his all the chiefs and the deputy inspectors and the deputy chiefs, and he pools all of his investigative units and says, give me the best of what you have, the best of the best. And they take these task force and they comprise them of all of the best investigators that they have. And they go out and, like he said, everyone checks their egos at the door. Nobody is looking to, say it's me, me, me. It's a team effort. They do whatever needs to be done. Collaborative, they go and intermingle with the feds. Like some people think, oh, the feds, they keep everything secret. When they're in on these task force, it's everyone's a family. Everyone's together in on it with one goal: to bring the perpetrator or perpetrators into custody. And that's it.
And the fact that they were able to work together and leave their egos at the door, and nobody tried to take jurisdiction or tried to be in charge. It seems like it was really a team effort. Yeah. Have they been digging up the backyard of that house? I haven't seen anything about that, but
I didn't see. I looked this morning when I went by there to look to see if I saw any like backhoes or anything like that, and I didn't see that. I didn't see any news coverage on it, but I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that they would do that. But it seems like he knew that he had that huge preserve behind him. He had Massapequa Preserve, which goes into Oyster Bay, and I got to tell you, it's when you look at it from Google Earth, it is massive, and there's bodies of water in there, and there's all different kinds of endangered wildlife and so forth in there. And I don't think that, I mean, you never know, right? You have to, I think they have to rule out his backyard.
Well, that's why, that was my gut feeling on why this guy stayed in this house. This is the house that he grew up in. It looks like something out of the TV show Hoarders. It's looks like it's falling down. He's an architect. Like, that's just bizarre.
That was the home that he grew up in. Yeah. So
maybe that he couldn't leave or couldn't sell it because he was burying, there's stuff there that he never wanted unearthed, let's say. And it just seems like an odd place for this guy to live.
I agree. And his Massachusetts home, according to attorney John Ray, is like a shanty shack as well.
Yeah.
So dual residence. His wife, from other sources, says is from Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said in the chat that there was a reporter that tried to interview the wife. I didn't see that. She said that she has no comment. I don't blame her. She's not going to make any comments. She probably shouldn't make any comments. But we all are curious. How did he pull this off?
Well, it seems that she was out of the town or out of the country every single time that lines up with one of these murders. They have, they have traced both their locations, and he was here doing these killings, and she was somewhere else. She was out of the country. She used to go to these Comic-Con conventions and stuff.
Wow.
So
I want to play the piece that I'm still playing. I don't know. Do you have time, or do you got to?
No, I'm good. I'm not going anywhere until this evening. I also want to get into like the grand jury. Did you talk about that yet?
The title of it is, of the stream is
sorry. Are there more victims?
It's fine. What's everyone's thoughts if there's still more victims out there that haven't been named? I'm talking about outside of the 11 that are mentioned. Is there more victims?
I think so.
Has this guy, along the decades, was he just going and seeking out sex workers for his sexual gratification, or was he killing more and we don't know about them? So that's it. I'm going to just play the rest of this because I thought this was a good piece. And they talk a little bit more about what's going on in and around the home.
Of Rex Heuermann's house. They saw the investigators in hazmat suits, a car being towed out of Heuermann's driveway, and something else hidden under a large tarp. It was like watching a movie. And for those who
I have an idea of what that is, by the way, from my Google Earth images, that there was inside his driveway, back parked, it looked like an antique, either car or an old piece of farming equipment that was in his driveway, from Google Earth images from 2012, I want to say. So that looked like what was parked in his driveway, and I don't doubt that thing didn't move, and it was probably there when they did the takedown in Manhattan Friday morning. So it could be. I'm going to just take a look at it again, just back it up. That's the avalanche that they were talking about, that has very distinct markings and matches up to all the evidence and all the things that were things that were mentioned in the probable cause affidavit. But let's take a peek at this again.
Of Heuermann's driveway, and something else hidden under a large tarp.
Yeah, it looks like
it
about
was
the
like
same
watching a
size.
movie. And for those who have been armchair detectives on this case for years, it's a day they never thought they would
Armchair
actually
detectives,
see.
Melanie.
I saw it on Facebook this morning, and I was at work. And
Okay, can you pause this for 1 second?
full time, I gotta
sure.
go.
Okay, take a look at his hat. It says Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, he's going out to be interviewed by the police, and he's like, "Honey, let me have a baseball cap," and this is what she gives him. Do you believe this?
I just took the branding off. Holy shit! I couldn't see it.
Massapequa.
Yeah. Wow.
Jeez.
Oh, hold on.
That is just. I mean, did he plan that? Was it a mistake?
Oh my goodness.
That is just
good,
crazy.
Good catch there. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre hat.
Yep, with the blood spatter. I mean, come on.
My goodness. Wow. Melanie, you're a little detective. I like
Irony.
Yeah.
I was just like, listen, I got to take some personal time. I got to go down here because this is a big case.
Shocked. But, we got to see how it plays out, too. We're talking about the Gilgo 4. So you all know that's not the end of the story, right? We still got the Manorville stuff. We still got a lot of the, the other victims.
And yet he is correct. While we know that Rex Heuermann is considered a suspect in several of these murders, he is not in all the other human remains that have been found at Gilgo Beach throughout the years. So the mystery around this case will continue. In Massapequa Park, I'm Kristen Thorne, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And that's a key point that Kristen just made there. There were, in the end, actually 10 sets of human remains discovered along the Ocean Parkway. And very early on, investigators, and we could show you video from back then when we were there watching them search both sides of the parkway. Early on, investigators were telling us they believed this was the work of at least 2 different, distinct people. That's because one set of human remains, actually the remains found first, were basically completed sets of remains wrapped in burlap.
Dismembered
The rest of them, that was 4 women. The other 6 victims were in much more of a sense of disarray, were scattered much farther across Ocean Parkway, and had obviously been there for much longer. So in this case, Heuermann.
So I wanted to stop it for a second because someone just put something in the chat that we get quite often, and damn it, where did it go? She said, oh, here it is. So Renee, thank you for that. She says, why do people keep referencing Manorville? And Melanie, I know you know the answer to it, but there was remains, as Josh Einiger just said here. The Gilgo 4 were wrapped in the burlap and were not dismembered or mutilated. The remains that were found as far as out as Fire Island and in Manorville were pieces, arms, heads, legs, torsos, things of that nature. Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so Manorville is at exit 70 off the LIE, which is, or is it 68? Maybe it's 68.
It's like 68 or 70. It's out there. It's out there.
And who's to say? I don't remember how old those remains are.
It's all from within that 90s range going into 2010. So I'm just amazed that nobody's come across any more remains. And I know that they did extensive searching, as you see in this file footage. I mean, look, this is them
Rest of them,
searching,
that was 4.
Searching the ocean, searching all along Ocean Parkway. And those conditions in the wintertime are brutal. It is brutal. Look at the ocean. Look at how rough it is and how cold it is there. So, I mean, I would have to imagine that they did a very thorough search, but there's so much property there. There's so many places to dump a body. Like, how thorough could they have done? You could do aerial. NYPD lent their helicopters to searching with the thermal, and the technology has changed since then. But
remember, this is reminiscent too of Brian Laundrie's body that was found in the the swamp or whatever, and the condition that his remains were in after only being in there for what, a month.
Yeah.
So now you're looking for stuff that could be a decade or more old, but my gut feeling, and from what the research that I've done on serial killers and studies and stuff, is that they just don't stop killing.
Nice.
So there could be things that are so recent that are cold that they're looking into right now.
I'm glad you just said that, because I have an interview with Joel Rifken, who was also a Long Island serial killer, and he got caught because he had an accident, and a female state trooper, pulled him over on the Wantagh Parkway. And what did he have in the back of his car? A set of human remains. Joel Rifken is one of the most evil, vile serial killers from East Meadow, Long Island, and he was interviewed by one of the news reporters, and she asked him outright in regards to Gilgo if he felt that there was more. And he said, yes.
Yeah.
So let's let the rest of this play, because I got to wrap up. We're getting close to the hour. I don't like to go way further past an hour, but let me just play this.
Different, distinct people. That's because one set of human remains, actually the remains found first, were basically completed sets of remains wrapped in burlap. The rest of them, that was 4 women. The other 6 victims were in much more of a sense of disarray, were scattered much farther across Ocean Parkway, and had obviously been there for much longer. So in this case, Heuermann is charged only with 3 of those first 4, the 4th likely to be added in the future. But it does speak to how complicated this investigation has been, and that has not been helped by corruption at the top of the Suffolk County Police Department, which significantly delayed progress here for years. Eyewitness News reporter N.J. Burkett has a look at the history of this gruesome case.
All 4 bodies were found in heavy brush within 500 yards of one another, dumped over the course of 18 months along a remote stretch of Ocean Parkway, 40 miles from New York. Detectives believe it happened in the middle of the night, that the killer chose the same desolate location each time, pulling onto the shoulder, switching off his lights, and dragging the body out of his vehicle, dumping it no more than 25 feet off the roadside. It would be several years before the first body would be discovered. A wider search revealed 3 others, all women, bound with tape or leather belts and identified through DNA. All had disappeared between 2007 and 2010. In the months that followed, more bodies would be recovered in the brush farther west, a total of 8 women, a man, and an infant. Prosecutors have charged Rex Heuermann for the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, all sex workers, and investigators say he is the prime suspect in the murder of the 4th, Maureen Barnes. Investigators say the technology and the expertise of the FBI are what cracked the case. ABC News contributor Rich Frankel is a former FBI special agent in charge.
What do you think investigatively made the difference, Rich?
So I think it was the analytics and the forensics.
But for years, the FBI was kept out of the case. Frankel blames former Suffolk Police Chief James Burke, who was later indicted and convicted.
So for those of you who are wondering, this is him. Indicted and convicted. I believe he served 46 months. He's probably out now. But yeah, this was a complete and total disgrace, and it lost. Suffolk County Police Department lost credibility with the public, and rightfully so, because this guy was seen on body camera and jailhouse video assaulting a prisoner, somebody who was known to him, that embarrassed him. It's a really terrible. I'm not going to get into it here because I'm already going down that rabbit hole, but a real piece of shit. This guy should have never been in law enforcement, and unfortunately, you always have some bad apples to ruin it for the people like myself and Bill and Ed and Phil and Mike. We're all we all put our lives on a line and dedicated a significant time of our adult lives to fighting crime. So people like that I despise. I hate pieces of shit like that.
In an unrelated corruption case,
He was, I think, the biggest hindrance to bringing the FBI in. We had asked to go in, and we were denied.
Do you think this case could have been solved sooner?
I don't know if the case could have been solved sooner, but I think there could have been a lot more movement on the case sooner. They did assist in trying to locate other bodies in that area. So there was some work being done, but the problem was that once we did the work and handed it over to the Suffolk DA, we never got it back.
NJ Burke at Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And for more on this landmark case, we have a very important guest. Bob Boyce was the chief of detectives at NYPD. He's now an ABC News contributor. Bob, thanks so much for joining us. It's good to talk to you.
Good to be here, Josh. Thank you.
So, and
you would have thought they would have got NJ Burkett away from the noise. Like,
right.
What the? But this guy, I worked for this guy. He was active when I was active on the NYPD, and he was a good boss. So let's hear what he has to say.
We're on a bit of a delay because we're both out of the studio, so everyone forgive that. But I'm curious what your first reaction was when you woke up this morning and you heard the news. Was this a surprise to you that they finally made this amount of progress?
I was surprised, but I wasn't shocked. I know that Commissioner Harrison had created a task force, fresh eyes, as he called it, on the investigation. This case turned very few weeks into the task force when the trooper did the lawman search that identified the car, the perpetrator's car, and that brought them to the house. They identified some more information on the car itself. There's an ornamentation on the car. So they had their name early on. Now you build a case around that. They had a subject and they moved forward on it. Great job by the commissioner. Great job by the task force. Kudos to them. Now I'm wondering, that house behind you, Josh, I have a little concern about that too. Where did this man commit the crimes? Where did he bind these women up? That's my point when I look behind the house behind you.
Because it's a great question, Bob, because one of the things that we learned in the criminal complaint today is that they have cell phone records that show that the suspect's wife was out of town at the times that he was involved with the women who ended up dead on the side of Ocean Parkway. So would that be would that be a reason why they've been there all day? They're looking for forensic evidence. And how long would that potentially last? It's been 12, 13 years.
It's different. It's my point exactly. That where did this happen? He met them. The burner phones with key information that helped to the FBI.
That's a current picture of Rex going into a cell phone store. That was within, I think, the last 2 weeks of him going into a Manhattan cell phone store to put more minutes on a burner phone.
Oh my God.
So that video on the right that you guys are seeing is surveillance of him. Again, they had eyes on him 24/7 since March 14th of 2022. And that's him getting more minutes so he can contact sex workers and do his searches for snuff porn and kiddie porn and all the crazy
torture porn,
torture stuff. Yeah, that snuff porn includes torture because it shows and depicts women having sex and then being tortured and then killed on film, on video. And when I talked to my wife about this last night, and I'll put us back on here, but I talked to Janine about this last night, and she was like, "Why in God's name can you search this stuff and watch it on the internet? Why don't they block that? And why is it available?" And that's a whole nother question and a whole nother live stream to talk about. But it breaks down to censorship. But when it comes to this, I think I personally would be in favor of taking that and removing it away, because it feeds the insatiable appetite of these deranged people. And it helps to fuel the fire of their freakish, ghoulish, homicidal desires. So,
and aren't there groups too of people who share this kind of information? And the dark web is a really dangerous place. And
this is our friend from South Africa, MMM Rhino Girl. People across the world know about the dark web. But if I was to just go now onto my Google search bar and search for this stuff, it would be there. I wouldn't do it.
I mean, that's a scary, scary proposition, and that our children have access to these things as well, right? It's like the pornography that you can get online by just typing in certain websites, whereas you used to have to pay per view on cable to get that kind of stuff, or your parent. I would have to block channels on my cable because some of it came with basic cable.
It's just disastrous. But anyways, that's, again, like I said, for another conversation. But let's listen to what Robert Boyce has to say here, because this is almost over. And then I want to play the interview, Melanie, if you don't mind, of Joel Rifken.
Sure, and then I have some info on the Manorville murders and also something else I want to bring up. Remind me.
Okay, great.
FBI, but that troopers thing, get him to that front door, that individual, getting that car back and looking at there. So they'll take their time. They're going to look to see if there's all of his accounts, what he bought online. This man led a secret life, and you have to really expose that secret life with all these things he was doing, especially those purchases that forwarded this, the burner phones, how he taped people up to burlap. That's all key stuff here. See what they find in that house in the next couple of days.
Do they need physical evidence of a crime, of a homicide, to make this case? Or in your opinion, from what you've seen, do they already have a good enough case against him?
Gosh, when you pile all this evidence together, it becomes compelling. Who else could have done it? And look, you're going to expose his secret life and what he's done. Now, he's already been indicted, so he has an absolute right to cancel. You can't talk to him. But there's enough evidence here that's gone forward. This has been over a year since I identified him. So they've had a long time to put this case together, and they did a really good job. And they brought everybody to bear on this individual. So I think it's the DNA, all these took their role.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're on this bit of a delay, but let me ask you about that long time. You obviously were in the detective bureau at the NYPD. You had a part of this case because one of the victims was from the Bronx. There's well-documented, dysfunction that for years hampered this investigation at Suffolk County. And I guess I'm curious, from everything you know about how this works and how it worked when Commissioner Harrison got involved. If this had happened, this is right on the county line, if this had all happened, if the discoveries had been made in Nassau County, would it have taken this long?
Yes.
It's hard to say, but I'll tell you, that lawman search has been around a long time. You had an eyeball on the perpetrator's car, or what could have been the perpetrator's car. So that should have been forwarded much more quickly than it was. And there's a lot of things. Technology changes. Those burner phones, the DA said there was 7 of them. You have to really track that down. You need the feds and their abilities, their data crunching abilities to solve cases. I've used them. I had never had a problem on calling the FBI and ask for help, and anybody else, the troopers as well. The more people you have in this fight, the better off you're going to
be. Bob Boyce.
It was a good interview. But Melanie, I wanted you to, before you forgot, to mention some of the points that you wanted to mention, because I'm going to queue up the Joel Rifken interview, which is, again, is going to circle back into this Gilgo 4.
Okay, so the murders that Heuermann is charged with are the murders of Melissa
Bartholomew.
Okay, Bartholomew, and that was in July of 2009. Megan Waterman, which was June of 2010, and Amber Costello, which was in September of 2010. There are 2 sets of remains of similar victims. Valerie Mack, whose body was discovered in Manorville in November of 2000. So that was 9 or 10 years prior to this. And Jessica Taylor, who is 20 years old, and her remains were found in Manorville as well in 2003. My feeling is those 2 cases are going to be connected to him. And also something else that I was remembering was the wildfires in the Pine Barrens. Do you remember all those wildfires? So in 1989, there was a huge set of brush fires that were in Manorville, which burned 500 acres of pine barrens, evacuated more than 20 homes. There were 39 departments of firefighters that came to battle this blaze. And those trees were burned for years and years and years. And then again in 95, the pine barrens were burned again. It was the largest fire that New York State had seen in nearly 90 years, and it took 4 days to contain it. That was 45 acres of pine barrens, 4,500 acres, I'm sorry, of pine barrens.
I remember.
And it was, they're calling it the Sunrise Fire because I think that was along Sunrise Highway.
Yeah, it was along Sunrise Highway all the way out in Suffolk. So,
and they did say that these might have been intentionally set. So, you know, if this was him and he was dismembering all the way back in 2000, 2003,
yeah.
Was he covering his tracks by setting fires? Are there other remains that could have been part of those fires? And as he got older, did he lose the strength and just, you know, desire to dismember?
Yeah, I mean, he's 59. That's my age. We're the same age, and you know, anything's possible here. And you know, people argue that pine barrens, they burn every year. I haven't heard of them burning recently. You bring up a good point, and it could be an extreme possibility here, because Long Island is so big, and there is so much. Like, people think New York, oh, it's all it's a concrete jungle. It's all buildings.
No, farmland.
Such farmland and big wide open spaces. I used to go out towards the Shoreham nuclear power plant and drive ATVs with my friends when I was in my 30s and 40s, and there was so many places to go riding in out Suffolk County. So the sky's the limit with this. The interview that I want to show, Melanie, is serial killer Joel Rifken. He notorious, vicious, brutal guy, same type of MO. He went after those sex workers. He was disgusted with them. He would intentionally pick them up, bring them back to his home in East Meadow with his mother in the home, and take them to the basement, take them to separate rooms, and torture and dismember, kill them, dismember them. He's interviewed by a news channel 2, CBS News. And this is old. You can see this footage is old, but they are asking him, the female reporter, and she's a considerable distance away from this guy, but she went and interviewed him in regards to the Gilgo Beach murders, the victims. And you got to hear what he has to say, because it's fascinating. So take a listen to this. I'm going to play this uninterrupted, and it's only 3 minutes, but got to listen to this, guys.
Inside the mind of a killer, certain things are very hard to stop.
An addiction to murder. Joel Rifken terrorized the city over a 4-year span, killing one woman after another with his bare hands.
You think of people as things.
And now a new killer may be following in his murderous footsteps.
There's like a whole little graveyard going on down there.
The beach off Ocean Parkway on Long Island, the final resting place of 4 women found murdered.
We could have a serial killer.
It happened last month. It is a scene eerily similar to a case 4 years ago just outside Atlantic City.
There's a madman out here.
There, just a mile from the beach in a drainage ditch, 4 women are found dead, strangled. 4 women in Atlantic City, 4 women on Long Island, 4 years apart, all unsolved. Could crimes of the past offer a clue? The year was 1990, the year the murderous rampage of notorious Long Island serial killer Joel Rifken came to an end.
A brutal, savage, murderous attack.
In maximum security prison for 16 years now, Joel Rifken spoke with me in detail about his killing spree and the 2 unsolved now. Rifken's victims totaled 17, all of them prostitutes.
Drug-addicted, disease-carrying vermin is the lie I told myself.
Unlike the groups of 4 discovered on Long Island and in Atlantic City, Joel Rifken told me he disposed of his bodies in 3s.
There were mini clusters. little, sets of three. 3 were dismembered, 3 were in oil drums, some were in water, some were on land. It's like my own little nightmare scenarios.
Rifken painstakingly covered up his crimes in threes. He researched past crimes for details.
Water is harder to investigate than land because it washes everything.
The killer in Atlantic City may have known that as well. The victims were discovered face down in several inches of water. Key evidence washed away. Rifken adds that's no coincidence.
Since it's 4 in one place, he's probably comfortable with the area.
When I asked if he thought the killer or killers in these latest cases would commit murder again,
Yeah. I don't have any doubts.
What about the women that you killed? Was there a thought about lives that you took? Families that you ruined?
You lie to yourself. You deny that there's a family. You deny that there's parents and possibly kids.
throughout his trial and his incarceration, Joel Rifken still cannot explain one thing. Why?
I don't know. I don't know. Why do people try to quit smoking for their entire lives?
Would you have killed again if you weren't caught?
As much as they say I wanted to stop, there probably would have been others.
The courts sentenced Joel Rifken to more than 200 years in prison, making any chance of parole impossible.
Compelling, huh?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I wanted to play that because this comes into play here. The title of this video is The Gilgo Beach Defendant. Are there still more victims out there? And I answer based on just looking at that as well as my experience. Yes. I answer a yes to that.
Yes.
Because look at
I'm going to agree with you. Look, Joel Rifken was only, the span of his crimes was only from 89 to 93.
Yeah.
So that was only a 4-year span that he was killing. I mean, this guy, this guy has been killing since, possibly 96. Potentially.
We're going to find out more.
Yeah.
So there was some gifting of memberships. I want to say thank you for the gifting of memberships. That was very nice and kind of everybody to do. If you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon, I have great guests like attorney Melanie Little. She has her own channel. Please go over and check out her channel. Go over to hers and support her. Ed Wallace and I are going to be covering the story from a forensic side as more details unfold. And we'll also cover it from the attorney side when we get to looking at all of the evidence and as this thing goes forward. August 1st, 2023 is his next date. We'll hear more from the prosecution and the defense, and we'll see what happens with the outstanding pending charges. We hope for Maureen Barnes. We want to see justice for her family and all the rest. Again, I wanted to go to the chat, but we ran a little bit late with playing some of this media. I want to thank everybody for the comments and the moderators and the replay viewers and the people who leave super thanks. That's a way to give super chat at the end when you're watching a replay. You guys are great. The support that we get, Melanie and myself and Bill and everybody that's out here doing this, we greatly appreciate you. We thank you for that engagement because without you, the audience, we really have nothing. And we could upload videos all day long, Melanie. You could talk about this all night and all day. Uploading a video is more work than doing a live stream. And that's why I like to just spend the time with you guys because the live stream is an interactive way for us to reach out and touch you guys on a personal level. So Cheryl, thank you. We greatly appreciate you. Melanie, you want to talk about your first live stream that you did the other night and your plans for your channel going forward?
We don't have to do that. It's hard to switch over to a topic that's so, not as unimportant as this one. But yeah, I did my first live stream the other night, and Ron was kind enough to help me out because I put the wrong link up. It's a whole thing. It's technically difficult the first time you do it, but I did it. I've been talking about the Kevin Costner divorce and all the drama that's going on there.
Right.
So it was really fun, and it was kind of like a party in the chat, and so many of you came over, and I thank you so much for that, because, you know, like Ron says all the time, without you guys, you know, we have nothing.
Right.
So thank you so much for your
Maybe
support.
maybe you could shift over from Costner to the Gilgo 4 and you know, do some reading of the. I know sometimes attorneys, they don't like to get into reading the probable cause affidavit, but I think that there's so much in it to talk about that you can make a couple of shows out of it.
Yeah, if people are interested in hearing about that and going through that, you know, there are YouTubers that do that with documents. I don't know how many people are interested in that, but it seems like a lot. I would be happy to do that if you guys are interested. It's 32 pages. We can go through it. Yeah.
I say yes to that. Let me know in the chat here. Let me know down below in the comment section. Thank you, Anika, for the super chat. We always appreciate you from New Zealand. Kia ora to.
Ron, I lost your audio. You're muted somehow.
Oh, okay, I muted it. I don't know how I did that.
Thank you, Anika.
Thank you, Anika. Maybe that's my wife telling me, let's go. We're going out to the wineries today, so we're going to go out, and I don't drink wine, but I'm going to go out with my wife and my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law out at the wineries and on the North Fork. So.
The other point I was going to make is that Suffolk County is largely farmland. It is not highly populated, and there is so much farm country out there on the East End. There are vineyards, there are, you know, farms, there are Christmas tree farms, all kinds of corn. You know, it's a lot of farmland on the East End, so there's plenty of dumping grounds out there.
Absolutely. And as I drive out there today, I won't talk about it with my wife, but that's going to be in the back of my mind. I'm going to be thinking, how many more sets of remains am I driving past when I'm down on Ocean Parkway and we go to the beach all the time in the summer? How many remains are still out there?
And Manorville is the cut through the Hamptons. You know, you get off at 68 and you go south, and that's how you get to the Hamptons. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Melanie, thank you for joining. You stayed here for 40 minutes or so with us. I so appreciate and love our friendship. And
you're muted again, Ron.
Every time I bang the table, that's what happened.
It's your passion.
But no, I appreciate you taking out the time. I mean, I know you're not even home. You're on a little bit of a vacation, or
I'm on tour with the Grateful Dead right now, but. Somebody's got to do it.
Well, enjoy your time, and everybody that's here in the chat, and to all the moderators and everyone who leaves comments down below, because we want to hear. Let us know what you think. Is this perp, and I hate to even use his name, Gilgo Beach Defendant, I like to refer to him as that. Do you think that there's more victims out there? Was this his only go at this, based on his moves and his the surveillance over the past arguably 14 months or so? I believe yes. The answer to that is yes, and we'll hear more about it in the future. Thank you to everyone for joining. Stand by for a message from our cop team. That's Kara, Oscar, and Popeye. I hope everyone has a great weekend. You too, Melanie. Be safe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
Appreciate it. Bye.